The bus stopped with a long hiss, and the doors opened to cold air and bright lights. 2 guards stood outside, watching the line of men step down one by one. Chains clinked softly with every step. The place ahead looked like a giant gray box with fences wrapped around it like tight wire. The new inmate walked last. His name on the papers was Marcus Hill. He was a black man in his early 30s. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and calm in a way that felt unusual for this moment. His head was up, but not in a proud way. His eyes moved slowly, taking in details without staring. He looked like a man who had already made peace with fear. To the guards, he was just another transfer. To the other inmates, he was a question. Inside the intake room, the air smelled like bleach and old metal. A loud fan turned somewhere above, and the sound made the room feel colder. Marcus stood in line, waiting. A guard called names. Men stepped forward, answered questions, and got pushed through the next door. When Marcus's name was called, he walked up without hurry. "Face forward," the guard said. Marcus faced forward. "Hands out." He held his hands out. The guard checked his wrists, then nodded to another officer. Papers were stamped. A quick photo was taken. His hair was cut shorter. His uniform was handed to him. His personal clothes were placed in a plastic bag and labeled like they belonged to a stranger. Marcus changed quietly. He did not complain. He did not joke. He did not try to act tough. He simply did what was asked and waited for the next instruction. A guard looked at him longer than he looked at the others. "You been inside before?" the guard asked. Marcus answered with a steady voice. "No." The guard raised an eyebrow. "You look too calm." Marcus did not react. "I don't know what else to do." The guard snorted like he did not believe him. Then he pointed at the next door. "Move." Marcus walked through and entered the prison for real. The hallways were long and loud. Doors clanged. Boots hit the floor. A distant shout echoed and faded. Marcus kept walking as 2 guards escorted him toward his new cell block. He noticed small things. The way guards watched hands more than faces. The way inmates watched shoes, posture, and who walked with who. The way noise changed when certain people passed by. Marcus did not talk. He did not need to. He arrived at C block. The gate opened with a hard buzzing sound. A guard led him into a wide room with 2 levels of cells. The place was crowded. Men stood in groups. Some lifted weights made from scraps. Some played cards on a bench. Some simply watched like they had nothing else to do. As soon as Marcus stepped in, heads turned. New faces were rare. A thin man near the railing whispered, "Fresh one." Another said, "Big guy." Someone else laughed softly, not kindly. Marcus kept his gaze calm. He did not look at anyone too long. He had learned a long time ago that staring could start problems. But looking away too quickly could do the same. A guard pointed down the row. "That cell. Top bunk." Marcus nodded. He walked toward it with his thin mattress under one arm. His footsteps were controlled. His shoulders stayed relaxed. He did not move like a man trying to hide. He moved like a man who knew exactly where his balance was. That is what made people notice him more. At the far end of the block stood a big inmate leaning against the wall, arms crossed. He had thick tattoos on both forearms and a square jaw. His hair was cut close. He looked like someone who enjoyed being watched. His name was Rick. Rick did not need to shout to be heard. People reacted to him just by how they moved around him. A few men smiled at his jokes too quickly, like they were scared of being left out. Others stayed away and pretended he did not exist. Rick watched Marcus walk. Marcus reached his cell and set the mattress down. He placed it neatly on the top bunk, then climbed up to adjust it. He did not rush. He did not struggle. He moved like someone used to controlling his body. Rick pushed off the wall and started walking over. The men around him stepped aside. Some looked away like they did not want trouble. A few leaned in, hungry for entertainment. Marcus finished fixing his mattress and climbed down. When he turned, Rick was already close. Rick smiled. It was not friendly. "So you're the new guy," Rick said. Marcus looked at him and gave a small nod. "Yeah." Rick glanced Marcus up and down, slow and rude. "You look strong." Marcus answered simply. "Okay." Rick's smile widened. "That's not how this works. You talk when I talk." Marcus kept his voice even. "I'm listening." Rick stepped closer until they were almost shoulder to shoulder. "You think you can come in here and act calm like you own the place?" Marcus did not move back. He did not move forward either. He stood steady. "I don't want problems." Rick laughed, and a few men around them laughed too, like they were part of his team. "That's funny," Rick said. "Everyone says they don't want problems. But problems want them." Marcus looked at Rick's face. He noticed the small twitch in Rick's jaw. The way Rick enjoyed control. The way Rick wanted a reaction, any reaction. Marcus did not give him one. Rick's eyes narrowed. "What's your name?" "Marcus." Rick nodded like he had expected something else. "Where you from, Marcus?" "Detroit." Rick smirked. "Detroit. Big city. Lots of tough guys." Marcus said nothing. Rick reached out and tapped Marcus's chest with 2 fingers. It was light, but it was not polite. It was a test. Marcus looked down at the fingers, then back up. "Don't do that." The block grew quieter. Rick's smile fell. "What did you say?" Marcus kept his voice calm. "Don't touch me." Rick stared at him. For a moment, it looked like Rick was deciding whether to make a scene now or later. He chose now. Rick shoved Marcus's chest with his palm. It was not a full hit, but it had force. Marcus took 1 step back, then stopped. He did not stumble. He did not lose balance. He did not raise his hands. He simply stood there. That made Rick's face twist with irritation. "You think you're better than everybody?" Rick asked. Marcus answered. "No." Rick stepped closer again. "Then act like it." Marcus looked around for a second. He saw faces watching, eyes wide, mouths tight. He saw men who wanted to see him fail. He saw a few who looked tired of this kind of thing but too scared to stop it. Marcus spoke in the same steady tone. "I'm here to do my time. That's it." Rick let out a loud breath and nodded slowly, like he was disappointed. "You know what I hear?" Marcus did not respond. Rick pointed at Marcus's bed. "I hear you're about to learn how things work. Tonight, your food is mine." Marcus looked at him. "No." Rick blinked, surprised. "No." Marcus repeated it calmly. "No." Rick's eyes hardened. "You really don't get it." He turned slightly and looked at the men nearby. "You see this?" Fresh guy says no. A few chuckled. Rick leaned in again. "Let me explain. There's order here. I keep order. You pay respect, you get peace. You don't, you get trouble." Marcus kept his hands at his sides. "I don't want trouble." Rick's voice dropped. "Trouble does not care what you want." Rick's fist tightened like he was about to swing. But he paused. He looked Marcus in the eyes, trying to find fear. Marcus did not give him fear. Rick stepped back and smiled again, but it looked sharper now. "Fine. We do this the slow way." He tapped Marcus's shoulder, harder than before, and walked away like he had already won. As Rick left, noise returned slowly to the block. Men talked again, but their voices sounded different. There was a buzz in the air now. Marcus turned back to his cell and climbed up to sit on the top bunk. He stared at the far wall, but he was not daydreaming. He was thinking. Not about fighting. About timing. About choices. About how fast this place tried to pull people into its games. Down below, the thin man from earlier approached Marcus's cell cautiously. He looked around first, then spoke quietly. "You should have just said yes," the man whispered. Marcus looked down. "Why?" The man swallowed. "Because he's Rick. He runs this block. If you embarrass him, he will make your life hard." Marcus asked, "What's your name?" The man hesitated. "Tom." Marcus nodded. "Nice to meet you, Tom." Tom looked confused by the calm reply. "You're not scared?" Marcus answered honestly. "I'm careful." Tom shook his head. Careful might not be enough. Marcus did not argue. He just listened. Tom leaned closer. "People say Rick put 3 guys in the medical wing last month." Marcus looked at him. "People say a lot." Tom looked down, then back up. "They also say the guards look away sometimes." Marcus let that settle. "Thanks." Tom stepped back. "I'm trying to help you." Marcus nodded. "I know." Tom left quickly, like being seen talking to Marcus could bring trouble too. Later, Marcus went to the chow line. The room was loud. Trays slammed. Men pushed forward. Guards watched like they were bored but ready. Marcus got his food and sat at a corner table alone. He ate slowly. He kept his eyes open. A group of men sat nearby, whispering and glancing at him. One of them smirked. "He thinks he can say no," the man said. Another replied, "Rick will fix that." Marcus ignored them. He finished eating and returned his tray without reacting. Back in the block, he sat on his bunk and waited. Evening came. The lights dimmed slightly. Some men played cards. Others argued about nothing. A few did push-ups on the floor. The air felt heavier now, like something was coming. Marcus stood and stretched his shoulders and neck carefully, like he was preparing for a workout. His movements were quiet, controlled, and practiced. He did not look like a man trying to show off. He looked like a man making sure his body was ready. Tom passed by again and glanced at him. Tom's eyes were worried. "Rick's coming," Tom muttered. Marcus nodded once. "Okay." Tom hurried away. Marcus stepped down from his bunk and stood in the open space near his cell. His hands were still at his sides. His face stayed calm. The block's noise began to fade as people noticed movement at the far end. Rick was walking back, slow and confident, with 2 men behind him. Rick's smile was gone now. He stopped a few steps from Marcus and looked around, making sure everyone was watching. Then he looked at Marcus and spoke in a low voice that still carried. "Last chance," Rick said. "You give me your food tonight, and we forget the rest." Marcus held Rick's gaze. His voice stayed calm and clear. "No." A hush fell over the block. Rick's jaw tightened. He nodded slowly, like he had expected this and was almost pleased. "Fine," Rick said. "Then you learn tonight." Rick took 1 step forward. Marcus did not move back. And in that moment, everyone in C Block could feel it. This was not just about food. This was about who would control the story from here on. The block stayed silent after Rick stepped forward. It felt like the air itself was waiting. Men stood still, pretending not to stare but watching everything from the corners of their eyes. Even the guards at the far end seemed slower to react, like they had seen this scene too many times before. Rick stopped right in front of Marcus. "You really don't understand how this place works," Rick said. Marcus stood straight. His shoulders were loose. His hands rested calmly by his sides. "I understand enough." Rick laughed once, sharp and short. "No, you don't." Rick turned his head slightly and nodded at the 2 men behind him. They spread out just a little, blocking the space around Marcus. Not close enough to touch yet. Close enough to send a message. Marcus noticed every step. He noticed how Rick stood heavy on his front foot. He noticed how one of the men kept shifting his weight, nervous. He noticed how the other kept his fists tight, trying to look ready. Marcus had seen this before, many times, in different places. Loud places. Bright places. Places full of shouting and cameras. This place was darker, quieter, and smaller. But people were still people. Rick leaned in. "You embarrassed me earlier." Marcus replied, "That wasn't my goal." Rick shook his head. "Doesn't matter. What matters is what people saw." Rick raised his voice so others could hear. "They saw you say no. That can't stand." Marcus looked around the block. Faces stared back at him. Some looked excited. Some looked worried. A few looked tired, like they wished they were anywhere else. Marcus spoke clearly. "You don't need to prove anything to them." Rick's eyes flashed. "You don't tell me what I need." Rick shoved Marcus again, harder this time. Marcus slid back one step, then stopped. His feet stayed planted. His balance stayed perfect. A murmur spread. Rick frowned. He shoved Marcus again. Marcus moved with it, then settled again. That was when Rick swung. It was fast, but not clean. Rick used power, not control. Marcus saw it coming. He stepped slightly to the side, letting the swing pass close to his shoulder. Rick missed. Before Rick could react, Marcus moved. It was not wild. It was not angry. It was exact. Marcus used Rick's forward motion against him. He shifted his weight, placed his hands, and guided Rick off balance. Rick stumbled and hit the floor hard, the sound echoing through the block. The room froze. Rick looked up, shocked. He had not expected to be on the ground. Not like this. Marcus stepped back immediately. He did not follow. He did not stand over Rick. He simply created space. "Stay down," Marcus said calmly. Rick pushed himself up, his face red. Rage burned in his eyes. "You think this is over?" Rick charged again, faster now, sloppy with anger. Marcus moved again. He blocked, turned, and placed Rick down a second time. Rick landed on his side, breathing heavy, confusion mixing with pain. This time, the crowd did not cheer. They were too stunned. The two men with Rick froze. They looked at Marcus, then at Rick on the floor. Neither moved. Marcus raised his hands slightly, palms open. "I don't want this." A guard's whistle cut through the air. "Break it up." Guards rushed in from both ends of the block. They separated everyone quickly. Marcus stepped back without resistance. Rick was pulled to his feet, shouting and struggling. "That's him," Rick yelled. "He attacked me." Marcus said nothing. His breathing stayed slow. His face showed no fear. A guard looked between them. He looked at Rick's wild eyes, then at Marcus's calm posture. "Both of you," the guard said. "Move." Rick was dragged away first, still yelling. Marcus followed quietly, hands behind his back as instructed. As they walked, inmates whispered, "That wasn't luck. Did you see how he moved?" Rick didn't even touch him. Marcus was taken to a small holding area. He sat on a bench alone. The room smelled like old sweat and cleaner. Time passed slowly. A guard entered and stood in front of him. "What happened back there?" the guard asked. Marcus answered honestly. "He touched me. He pushed me. I defended myself." The guard studied him. "You trained before." Marcus looked at the floor. "A long time ago." The guard nodded slightly, like that confirmed something. "You didn't keep going." "I didn't need to." The guard left without another word. Marcus was returned to the block later that night. Rick did not come back. The mood had changed. Men moved differently around Marcus now. Some nodded at him. Some avoided his eyes. A few watched him like they were trying to understand him. Tom approached carefully. "You okay?" Marcus nodded. I'm fine. Tom looked shaken. That was fast. Marcus replied. It didn't need to be long. Tom lowered his voice. Rick got sent to medical. Then somewhere else. Marcus said nothing. The night passed quietly. In the days that followed, no one challenged Marcus. His food stayed his. His space stayed his. People gave him room without being told. Whispers followed him down the hall. They said he had fought professionally. They said he had won titles. They said he had ended fights in seconds. Marcus did not correct anyone. He did not confirm anything either. He kept his routine simple. Wake up. Eat. Walk. Exercise lightly. Think. One afternoon, Marcus sat on a bench doing slow movements, stretching his arms and shoulders. An older inmate named Henry sat nearby. You don't move like the rest of us, Henry said. Marcus glanced at him. What do you mean? Henry smiled faintly. You move like someone who learned discipline before anger. Marcus considered that. Maybe. Henry nodded. That's rare in here. Marcus asked, how long you been inside? Henry sighed. Long enough to know strength doesn't last. Control does. Marcus respected that answer. Later that week, a guard stopped Marcus during count. You're keeping things calm, the guard said. Marcus replied, I'm just staying out of trouble. The guard looked at him. Funny how that works. At night, Marcus lay on his bunk and stared at the ceiling. He thought about the past. About crowds cheering. About bright lights. About a life where violence was controlled, timed, and respected. That life felt far away now. Prison was not a ring. There were no rules written on paper that people followed. But there were still choices. Marcus chose restraint. Rick never returned to C Block. The story spread anyway. People talked about the bully who met someone stronger. Someone quieter. Someone who did not need to prove anything. And Marcus understood something important. In this place, fear moved fast. But respect moved deeper. And he planned to keep it that way. Life inside C Block settled into a new rhythm after Rick disappeared. The noise was still there, the shouting, the doors, the daily routine, but something important had shifted. People no longer tested Marcus. They watched him with quiet respect, like they understood a line had been drawn and no one wanted to cross it. Marcus noticed the change, but he did not react to it. He did not walk differently. He did not act proud. He kept his head level and his actions simple. Every morning, he woke before most of the block. He folded his blanket neatly. He stretched his body with slow, careful movements. He breathed deep and steady. These habits came from years of training, not from prison. Other inmates started waking early too. They did not crowd him. They just watched from a distance. Some copied his stretches. Some asked simple questions. How do you keep calm in here? Marcus answered honestly. I focus on what I can control. Another asked, you miss fighting? Marcus paused before answering. I miss discipline, not the damage. That answer spread faster than his reputation. Tom stayed close to Marcus now, not in a weak way but in a learning way. He listened more than he talked. One afternoon, Tom asked, were you really a champion? Marcus looked at him. I fought. Tom nodded. That's enough. Marcus appreciated that Tom did not push further. Weeks passed. No one replaced Rick. Smaller conflicts still happened, but they ended quickly. Men thought twice before pushing someone weaker. Guards noticed the change too. One guard said quietly to another, this block feels different. The other replied, yeah, less noise. That difference came from Marcus, even though he never tried to lead. One day, Marcus was called to the office area. A senior guard sat across from him, flipping through papers. "You've got a record outside these walls," the guard said. Marcus sat straight. "I know. Professional fighting. Titles. Fame." "That was years ago," Marcus replied. The guard studied him. "Why are you here now?" Marcus answered without anger. "Bad choices. Wrong people. I paid for it." The guard leaned back. "You could cause problems in here if you wanted." Marcus looked him in the eye. "I don't want to." The guard nodded slowly. "That might be why you're not causing any." Marcus was dismissed and returned to the block. That night, Henry sat beside Marcus again. "People follow you," Henry said. Marcus shook his head. "I'm not leading." Henry smiled. "Leadership isn't always chosen. Sometimes it shows up when someone refuses to act small." Marcus thought about that long after Henry walked away. A few days later, a fight broke out near the showers. Two younger inmates were arguing loudly. Voices rose. Hands pushed. The block tensed. Marcus stood up slowly. He did not rush. He walked toward them, calm and steady. "Stop," he said. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The two men froze when they saw him. One looked away first. The other stepped back. "It's done," Marcus said. They backed off without another word. No guards had to step in. After that, things became clearer to everyone. Marcus was not just strong. He was stable. And in prison, stability mattered more than force. Months went by. Marcus spent time in the library, reading quietly. He helped Tom learn to read better. He listened when Henry talked about life before prison. He shared food when someone went hungry. He never talked about his past unless asked directly. Even then, he kept it short. The legend around him grew anyway. Some said he was the deadliest fighter of his time. Others said he ended matches in seconds. Some exaggerated. Some guessed wrong. Marcus did not correct them. He focused on who he was now. One evening, the block buzzed with news. Rick had been transferred again. This time far away. People nodded when they heard it, like a final chapter had closed. Tom looked at Marcus. "Guess that's the end of that story." Marcus replied, "Every story ends somewhere." Tom smiled. "Yours isn't over." Marcus did not answer, but he thought about it later that night. He lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the prison settling into sleep. He thought about the cage fights, the bright lights, the crowd shouting his name. He thought about the moment he lost control outside, the mistake that put him here. Prison had stripped away titles, money, and applause. But it had given him something else. Clarity. Marcus realized he no longer needed to prove who he was. Not to bullies. Not to crowds. Not even to himself. One morning, a guard called his name during roll call. "You've been approved for a work program," the guard said. "Kitchen duty." Marcus nodded. "Thank you." In the kitchen, Marcus worked hard. He followed rules. He kept things clean. He helped others without acting superior. The staff noticed. "You ever think about coaching when you get out?" one worker asked. Marcus shrugged. "Maybe. Teaching control matters." That idea stayed with him. Time moved slowly, but it moved. The day came when Marcus was called again to the office. "Pack your things," the guard said. "You're being released soon." Tom hugged him awkwardly. "You changed this place," Tom said. Marcus replied, "You changed yourself." Henry shook his hand. "Don't forget who you are." Marcus answered, "I finally know who I am." When Marcus walked out of the prison gates, the sun felt brighter than he remembered. The air felt lighter. He did not look back. Inside those walls, the story remained. About a bully who thought strength was fear. About a new inmate who knew strength was control. People would tell that story for years. But Marcus moved forward, quiet and steady, carrying no anger, no pride, only purpose. He had been the deadliest champion once. Now, he was something better. A man who chose peace when power was easy.